Hello again, and welcome everyone to another amazing, incredible, delicious edition of Interfaithing, Why Families Can Embrace Two Faiths Under One Roof. I am one of your co-hosts, Rabbi Ari Sass, here joined by the always fabulous Reverend Anna. Good to see you, Rev.
Always, always such a joy to be with you, Rabbi Ari. And as soon as you said delicious, the skit from Saturday Night Live, the delicious dish, just popped back into my head.
Okay, the
And
delicious dish.
yeah, considering that was pre-podcast era, like NPR style radio show, it made me laugh. Maybe because it's almost lunchtime here in California.
I
But
love it. I love it. I love it. Maybe one day we will be able to grace the presence of the Saturday Night Live stage, imitating this podcast. It'd be amazing.
that, or just have one of our fantasies come true of having a proper, like, sit down interfaithing live
Oh my
over a
God,
shared meal
that would be awesome.
recording would be
That would be just
awesome.
incredible. I would
It
love
would be
that.
so cool.
So,
Although, I don't wanna visit in the winter because
no, I
maybe I
kind of want to come out
should.
to California now
Yeah.
with where we
Yeah,
got the
you
snow, the pileups, like right because I'm in South Philly, and just like there are certain spots on the road on the street where we can park, and there's certain spots where we cannot park, and so it makes it even harder. And then people
Mhm.
put out their stools or baskets or chairs, be like, no, 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 no one else is taking the spot.
Yeah, this
But
is
it's
the
like,
spot in my
but the
area.
problem is that because there are like these large piles of snow, they make it much more
Huge.
difficult to park. Oh,
Exactly.
it's lovely.
Oh my goodness,
Lovely, I
yeah.
mean not. I mean not.
I can't say that I miss things like that. My family is all, buried in, like, ice and
Oh
freezing
my God, for like the
temperatures
first
also.
time, right?
No, not the first
Not
time,
the first time, okay.
but the first time in a while. It's not a common occurrence. So the South is freaking out, but, in California, we've had unreasonably warm, like,
Mm,
80 degree.
you know what?
So, yeah,
I
come visit
think I
me.
think a I think another version of interfaithing is like having an East Coaster and a West Coaster,
See?
just doing a podcast together like this. It's like, oh, come on, man. It's like different kind of mentalities, different kind of ways in which we are, and yet we're figuring a way to make it work, right? Under this
Exactly.
one roof of this podcast.
One roof of this podcast. Yeah, we're gonna heal the East-West divide as along the way, along the way.
A little Tupac and Biggie kind of thing.
They were
For those
actually
who get that. Oh, they're actually friends, of
they were
course.
actually friends.
Of course
Don't
they
believe
were.
the propaganda,
I will not.
okay?
I will not.
Yeah.
So maybe you can kind of tell a little bit from, just our banter back and forth, but that this episode's going to be a little bit, I wouldn't say not even lighthearted, but a little bit more, should we put it, sassy. Yes, this is our
Sassy.
sassy episode. We have not
Yes.
yet to know what we're going to officially call it, but for right now, we're calling it our sassy episode. What does that actually mean? I think that, well, I'll start with you, Rev. How would you define sassiness?
Well, anyone who knows me would not be surprised that a
Hmm.
sassy episode is happening because a certain amount of sass, uh,
I
just
kind of want to
comes with this package. Yeah,
I
just
want to do a count of how many times we say that word
let's just
today.
yeah, exactly.
Right, over under. We're gonna put it on DraftKings.
Yeah. What's the other one? Kalshi? Trade on anything?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Right.
An over/under thing. I will describe it also with another quote coming from my
Mhm.
academic life that I really did have a professor in grad school write on one of my papers, of which I still got, positive remarks
Mhm.
and equivalent to an A, whatever. But he wrote on to my paper, "You have a real knack for pithy statements." And I took that as a full-throated compliment.
Beautiful. So tell me more about how that all defines for you
Pith,
what sass means.
sass, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not not always be prim and proper, to not always have this kind of veneer
Mhm.
of not wanting to offend with what you say. Essentially, to me, it's a form of truth telling.
Mm.
Because if you can inject a little bit of pith or sass, sarcasm even at times, to really like underscore a point, I think sometimes it can like shake people out of
Right.
a headspace of hyper seriousness
Yeah.
or righteousness,
Okay.
self
Right.
righteousness, and, bring it back down to earth, so to speak.
Mm. So yeah, I love what you said there, especially in regards to how the sass or the pithiness is connected with a certain amount of not taking something as seriously as someone else's, or not kind of giving in to the self-righteousness of ideas.
Mhm.
Like the ideas and the notions that are so utterly serious that it is not only takes the joy out of the experience overall, like to bring the joy back in, I think is a little bit of that
Right.
sassiness, but
Yeah.
also that it makes it so critical that everybody fall in line, because how dare you not do that? And I think that
Exactly.
also the other part of sassiness, in terms of whether it's sarcasm, wit, it's being unafraid of what it is that you're sharing, is a certain level of confidence
Mhm.
and a certain level of knowledge that part of what it is that we're doing is going to cause a stir. Like
Yes.
we're not necessarily saying that the only purpose of what we're doing is to cause a stir, but that we know it is going to, and we're okay with that because
Exactly.
people need to be stirred. So,
Yes.
like the
Yeah.
whole idea of an interfaithing family, two individuals who come together, who are trying to make faith and tradition and culture work in the home, can often be seen. And I know that I've made this mistake too in my own life, where it's like a very serious thing, very like we need to be very careful of exactly how to do it. And there was a previous episode that we had, particularly with Reverend Samantha Gonzalez Block, when she talked about the way in which her family celebrates Hanukkah and Christmas. They call it Hanukkah, and that it was fun. It was engaging. It was like really bringing both of these things together in a way that would feel perhaps syncretic, which is
Mhm.
a difficult word for some folks, because it seems like you're creating something that's like very new and very different than where the origins it came from. But really, it is a way of saying, like, we're going to put these two things together and have fun with it and enjoy it and say that's a good thing. And so I think that
Exactly.
the sass is like, when we talk about sassy episode, is like, we're going to talk today, especially about how like this could be a good thing, and that everybody who experiences an interfaithing life to be proud of it and not to be scared of it. Like, yes,
Exactly.
there are certain things that we have to be concerned about, and there are things that could get in the way of interfaithing families, and we do need to take those seriously. But
Yes.
part of what makes this so cool is really just how much joy and like creativity can come out of it, and to not be afraid of
Exactly.
enjoying that.
Yeah, to not be afraid of it. And I think there's an element also of not striving for perfection, because part and parcel of any person's experience, right? Like coming together with another, figuring things out, forming a family, and the day to day, there's messiness that comes with that. There's a
Mhm.
lot of ridiculous things that happen. And also being able to like laugh at
Yeah.
something that didn't go according to plan or that kind of fell apart when you had these, ideals of what maybe like the first time you're inviting extended family members over for a holiday celebration. And I don't know, like, some comical thing happens where like the family member brings the wrong kind of such and such that I can't
Casserole.
even come up with
How
a
about a
good
casserole?
example. Yeah, like a casserole that in their mind was vegetarian, like a bigger family event that somebody's like, well, there's a vegetarian that we need to incorporate into the family meal. And somebody who's not used to cooking for a vegetarian or vegan diet is like, here's the mac and cheese.
All right.
You know, those are ridiculous things that we don't need to shun one another for. Like, we can laugh about it and be good natured and good
Right.
hearted.
It's
And
like,
then they become like those memories that are galvanizing for
next year
families.
I'm just going to show up in a mac and cheese costume and be like, I guess this
Okay.
is who I am. I'm just a mac
Yeah.
and
Like,
cheese
this is who I
person.
am now. Yeah.
Right.
I'm the mac and cheese person.
Just have a lot of fun with
Anyway,
it.
that was an awkward example to finally like come up with,
I don't
which,
know, because now I think I have my Purim or Halloween costume is a mac and cheese costume. Which, by the way, maybe the other reason why this is relevant, especially from a Jewish angle. Yes, first of all, we got the snow around and it's like miserable outside sometimes, so it's good to be able to laugh a little bit as we're in February. We just celebrate the holiday of Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees, about to approach the spring, and which means that the next holiday is Purim. And Purim is a holiday where it's all about the sass, all about the fun, the witticisms, the sarcasm, the jokes. You know what Rachel and I are thinking about going to dress as
What?
Purim?
What?
We are thinking about the possibility of dressing up as everything that is, say, treif, that is not kosher or not Jewish. Like, I'm
Please tell
going
me
to
you're
get,
just gonna be a big old piece of bacon.
I mean, who knows exactly what's going to be, but there might be a future Santa Claus outfit in my future as well. So whether it's treif or whether it's like the other holidays that are not, that we don't celebrate kind of thing, it's going to be a lot of fun to like play
Yeah.
around with it. And it's
Yeah.
out of wanting to be joyful and also understand that like, yeah, part of joy is being able to kind of push the envelope as it may be. So,
Yes.
you know, some of the stories that we want to talk about here today are related to pushing the envelope when it comes to the issues surrounding interfaith families, and partially because of the stories that we've heard from folks who were turned off of their religious paths because they weren't given sort of a pathway to say like, oh yeah, let's play with it, you know, move forward with it, as opposed to you're doing something really bad. But I also want us to kind of not lose sight of our own stories of our connection to our faith traditions, and how my sense from our conversations, Rev Anna, is that we've often approached our faith traditions with some sass as well. And so I
Yeah,
think that some of those kind of stories are going to be relevant for everyone to hear as well.
I agree. Maybe it's something about that shared experience of both being clergy kids
Yes.
and having the kind of like behind the curtain look into
Mm-hmm.
the congregation and what it means for one's parent to be in a role like that, and the types of concerns and complaints that would come to, in this case it was both of our fathers, and sometimes to have to be like, are you kidding me? Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
what this person is upset about right now. Like, literally one time I will laugh about it now. I hope my father can at this point in time, because it actually hurt him in the moment.
Well,
But it was one of those.
To Rev Anna's dad, to Pastor Ted Deweese, we hope that you shall be mollified, or that
Yes, lifted up.
lifted up by
Lifted
virtue of this
up
story.
by virtue of this story, that there was somebody, I think it was actually surrounding like an Advent or a Christmas service. And, I don't know if this is common at the end. I think it is, like, in temple, like at the end of service, the rabbi, the pastor, whomever has given the sermon is usually like available, and people will come up and like shake their hand to say, thank you, rabbi. And like, so my
At the
dad had
Advent
done
service,
this.
right?
Yeah. So this is
The
at
rabbi
like
at the Advent service.
Yes, I was crossing over the examples of like, we both do this, right? Ministers and rabbis like do this. They're
Right.
available to
Mm-hmm.
receive members of the
Yeah.
congregation at the end of service. And my father is standing there, and like people are queuing, right? To like
Yeah.
walk
To
by
wait,
and
to
to like
shake the
wait
hand and right.
and then say like until next week and like go out. And my father, I know part of why it was heartbreaking, because it caught him so off guard that this person like came up and was in the act of shaking his hand
Yeah.
and said something to the effect of like, this ruined Christmas for me because there weren't enough hymns
Oh my God.
during this, or something about like a particular hymn that this individual just
Oy.
expected to be in the part of the service.
Oh my
And
God.
he used the phrase of like, this ruined the holiday for me. And my
Mm.
dad was just kind of, stunned in the moment and couldn't
Yeah.
talk
Couldn't
back,
react to
couldn't,
it.
do anything in the moment. And I do remember his heartbreak as he was processing it at home later. And it was one of those opportunities that, I mean, I think I was 15
Okay.
ish, 16, so peak sassiness as a teenager,
All right.
who had plenty of other thoughts and feelings about this congregation in particular. And I just wanted to go off on this man,
So what was it that you were going to say if you could?
highlight the,
You know. You know. You know.
highlight the hypocrisy of kind of transferring, like, you think that that my father ruined your holiday, so you're gonna try to ruin his,
Right.
and just have some things to say. I
Right.
didn't. I didn't. I would not have been allowed to,
But you definitely had it within you,
but I
right?
had it within me. And, if we were going to talk about that experience together as a family now, I hope my dad could similarly kind of just talk about the ridiculousness of an experience like that. and at the same time still bear some witness to the humanness of what else may have been going on with that congregant that like as a function of being the pastor, my dad had to hold space and receive somebody else's, maybe it
Right.
was grief, discontent about whatever. And he couldn't give back what had just been given to him. But I really wanted
Mm.
to. But I really wanted
You know what?
to.
It would have been funny if you said or if you thought of, and I think part of like the sassiness is sort of also like the response to say like, "Oh no, you didn't." Like, no,
Exactly.
no, that is not right. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but Sheila said that this was the first one that she really liked. So Sheila or you, I think I know where I want to go, where I'm going to end up. Have a wonderful Christmas, right?
Yeah. It's
But
like,
I think there's also that kind of posing element to it, which by the way, just as a kind of a side note here, a little teaching on the side, that, Adam and Eve are often referred to, particularly even in the Hebrew, that
mm,
they're referred to as an ezer kenegdo, which means a helpmate, often translated as a helpmate, but it's also literally means like someone who is helpful by being opposing to him. So it's like you get that other point of view out there, and part of the idea of helping is also to bring in the opposing view.
exactly.
And I think that is part of the ultimate like sassiness of, if
Yeah.
I
It's
can,
the
of
contrast.
oh right, but also of like the interfaithing kind of world that we're trying to help promote. A couple things along those lines. The first is that, one of the main stories around all this is if a child decides to marry a person of a different faith background, in this case, actually not even just talking about if it's a Jewish parent who does that, but my experience has been it's very often the Jewish parent who says, like, how dare you? That if you do it, then you're going to be cut off or it
Mm,
is going to be the worst thing in the world.
yeah. The
Oh,
shunning
three
thing.
different
Yeah.
stories around that. I'll start with the worst ones and then end up with the kind of the better kind in a way. Oh, the two worst ones, one is actually really need to read the book and then see the movie is um God Is Me, Margaret.
That's right. I didn't watch the recent film that came out, but I grew up with
Yeah, fair
Judy
enough.
Blume books. Yeah.
I really need to read it, especially this latest version. So I just caught a little bit because my wife is watching it with my daughter, and I happened to catch this scene, which was perfect, where in at least this version of it, that Margaret has an interfaith couple as parents. Father's Jewish, mother who is Catholic, and basically the mother, so the Catholic spouse's parents
Hmm. Hmm.
had basically shunned her because she married a Jew.
Wow.
And
Yeah. I don't
that
remember that from the book.
part of this scene is about whether or not the grandparents that on that side are going to come back and
Mm,
the challenge that it comes for the couple to be able to deal with it. And
sure.
it seems like there's a lot of hurt and a lot of
Mm,
pain that makes it very difficult for them to potentially receive Margaret's grandparents. And it's
mhm,
hard for Margaret, it's hard for the other side of the family. And just like that's where the tension really lies. And then you get, and this is a case where in my own work, I'm working with a young person who was telling me that in her family, her dad is Jewish. Her mom is Catholic. Yeah, her mom is Catholic. And though they did not necessarily do that much religion in the home, they would definitely be identified as Catholic, primarily because her father was not in touch at all with
mm,
his side of the family.
mm,
And when I was kind of asking a little bit more about this and a little bit deeper, it seems that one of the main things was that they were upset that he married a non-Jew.
mm.
And so that
Wow.
kind of ended that, right? So this is when it's hard. This is when it's
Yeah. Yeah.
painful. Third story is one that we've talked about before, which is one of the parents from the interfaith community when we were planning the seventh grade graduation ceremony or the coming of age ceremony for the kids. And the parents were there, and one of the dads was basically like, I want to show my parents that
Mhm.
this is going to work,
Uh-huh.
right? This is going to work. Now,
Yes.
there was that pain. There
Mhm.
was that feeling of like of being against what, the kind of test the culture from which he was raised because they were not accepting him.
Mhm.
But the sass was like, I'm going to show them that it is going to work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I find to be powerful about that sass is, especially in the context of what we're talking about, is it isn't a sass of just being obstinate.
No,
It isn't a
exactly.
sass of just saying, like, I don't care what you say. It's
Mhm.
more the sass of saying, you think you know everything? You think you can tell me how to be able to do this thing that is my life, my family, my religion, my job, whatever it is? No, no, no.
Yeah,
I'm going to show you. I'm going
yeah.
to show you what it could be.
Yeah.
How's that for sass?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of, like, stepping into your power in a
Mm,
certain way
yeah.
by needing to do that, and I also think sometimes it's expressing it as a form of sass. It's like, otherwise, it's only gonna come out as, like, pure anger, and I don't think a lot that's not where, anger can come from pain, right? It very often does, but I think a lot of us also recognize that living in anger is not how we want to operate. And I think especially in that story with our interfacing family, it's also because they were so proud of their kid.
Yeah. So proud of their kid and
They were
proud of
so
the fact that
proud of their kids.
they were able to do this,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Honor their traditions where they come from.
Right. Yeah.
Part of, the pride, right? Part of it all is to look at this scenario, look at this,
Yeah.
opportunity as for what is possible, and
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
basically call out the hypocrisy of others who believe that they know exactly where the line needs to be drawn, that they know exactly what is okay and what is not okay,
Exactly.
especially, by the way, when you're talking about folks who don't have as much information as you do, have not
Mhm.
done as much learning as you've done, have not gone through the struggles that you've gone through, but who are so sure about it. Like
Mhm.
that's when it can be even more fraught with that anger there. But I also think that, if we're being perfectly honest, that do I know exactly the right way for interfaith families to make it work? Do I think that there aren't things to be concerned about? I, I don't know everything, and I know one of the things that we've bonded over is the fact that we just don't know, but that it's the spirit that moves us, in different ways. It's that wanting to live with the spirit of connection, of deeper understanding of Hashem, Jesus, the Spirit, however we want to define what God is, and recognizing that we are all creations, all creatures of God. That it's like the Jewish people have suffered for so long,
Mm.
and so many centuries we've been in pain and anger. And very often, the response that is repeated by generations of rabbis is to respond to suffering with joy. Don't just get angry, but to enjoy life, like l'chaim,
Yeah.
like all
Yeah.
of that. That's part of what the sass of life is, and I think that that's what this is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we got to play with contrast, and we've talked about this that there are so many ways, I think particularly in the United States, that Christianity is experienced as domination or to be domineering. And that also to me is oftentimes expressed with a lot of aggression and anger. Again, this is very much my personal opinion, but I think there are lots and lots of people who would agree with me that when we see those expressions of people calling themselves Christian, is to say, like, no, that's not at all like what I feel in my heart because Jesus is Jesus is all about love.
I think also Jesus is all about sass. If
I
I'm
think
also,
Jesus is also a little bit sassy, I'm not
just
gonna
thinking of
lie.
about all this and of like being able to sort of look at things in different ways and to turn things over in the temple and to
Mhm.
say like why are we doing it in this manner? It's not out of a sense of I hate this thing that is my tradition, but
No.
I love my tradition. I love my
Yeah.
God and I want to figure out like how we can apply it even broader. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that I've learned through our conversations, through my own sort of learning, is that approach that is not about the theological differences between Jews and Christians or Muslims in regards to, like who is the most important, who's the prophet, who's the son of God, all of that. But it speaks to here is a real live human being who is trying to figure out in his lifetime how to make religion, how to make his faith, how to make his tradition like come alive. I think that all of the great leaders, I think Moses does some of this as well, especially when he gets so frustrated with the Israelites, and as well thinking about what Muhammad's message was to fellow Muslims about getting them to see God in a different way than what they were used to.
Yeah.
There's a sense of, I guess I'm saying is that if you're going to really try to connect yourself to a spirit, to something that is bigger, that it requires a little bit of that sass, or maybe there's a good time to bring in that term of chutzpah, right?
There you
A little
go.
bit of that
Yeah,
chutzpah.
a little gall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and even just thinking about like a couple of examples, like for Christians to think about, like you said, I think Jesus is pretty sassy. The stories of Jesus as a 12 to 13-year-old, um, and how he responds to his mother when they think that he's like lost. And there's a way of reading it that you can kind of hear this, like, are you serious, woman? Like, I was in my father's house. I'm fine.
Jesus, the sullen
It's like
teenager.
preteen. And maybe some people would think that's sacrilegious. And I would say be less serious.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposedly both fully divine and fully human, right?
Yeah.
And later, even when he's like interacting with the group of disciples that follow him and join him in all of his itinerancy and teaching, more than once, when it's supposedly just a time of him talking with the disciples, and he's kind of like almost like spot checking, like,
Yeah.
you guys get this, right? Or what would you say of this and this? And the disciples say something, and Jesus, like, I can just see the side eye where he's like, Are are you serious? Are you guys for real right now? Like,
Yeah.
no, that's not the point. They mess up all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I get like the eye roll from Jesus and some of his
There might be the
encounters with the
title of this,
disciples.
Jesus's eye roll.
Yeah.
Why
It's
Jesus eye
there.
rolled and you should too, by
Like,
interfaithing.
maybe, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit of like eisegesis, because I'm
Right,
sassy.
reading
So I
into the
read it
text.
into the
Yeah,
text.
reading into the text.
Like, maybe, but like, I can't be the only one. I can't be.
No, look, it's interesting because so I'm part of the work that I'm doing right now is continuing to work through the halacha, the Jewish legal argument for permitting intermarriages. And one of the pieces that I'm focusing on right now, trying to make clear, is that number one, if an argument is going to be able to withstand the test of time, it really has to build on the shoulders of the text in the Torah. Because very often, if it's not built on the text of the Torah, then it could just be seen as like an opinion of a certain age, and then people can sort of discard it. But the funny thing is, in reading some of the language on how rabbis in the past have said that they're going to do that kind of work, not about intermarriage, but just on other matters, especially things that they wanted to change, it
Yeah.
was that the Torah is fine, but we need to strengthen the rabbi saying. And so what the rabbi says is going to trump and be more significant than what it says in the Torah, because our views need to be as important. And what's like
Wow.
crazy about that is
Wow.
the chutzpah, right? The sass of being able to say something like that. But here's the point. The point is, and this is something that comes through in any kind of study of halakhic literature, rabbis have figured out a wide variety of tools at their disposal to be able to alter, to adjust laws as necessary, given whatever the circumstances may be. But what is sacrosanct is that the rabbis have the power to do so because we trust them, right? Because we know that they love the text, that they would not do something to just walk away from it. That in one case, the one tradition is "Et la'asot ladonai sheheferu b'toratecha," which means that now is time to act for the Lord because they have annulled, or they basically gotten rid of or abrogated the Torah, which has to do with the fact that the rabbis are trying to make sure that people can connect to Torah and that they can connect to their tradition, and they do things that seemingly are different than what the Torah has to say. I would argue that part of my argument is really to say that I want to keep the Torah and its nuances, including the nuance around intermarriage, where, there isn't a marriage that's not good. There just
Yeah.
is. Like
Yeah.
in the case I gave to you today, that you have an individual who basically said like, okay, well, now I'm going to turn my back on Judaism because they turned it on me. So
Mm.
even though I blame the parents more for that, but the
Yeah.
fact that the father did it meant that his daughter is like has no knowledge of what Judaism is, but now she wants to come closer to it. So that's like now there's an opening, and to say like it's okay
Mhm.
allows for that opening to come back to Torah. And I wonder if the parents had been given advice, be like, no, 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 this isn't a terrible thing. In fact, it could be a beautiful thing if you're willing to go down that road, if it would be different, right?
Right.
Sometimes our self-righteousness, like the one who says, you ruined Christmas for me, they're going
Mhm.
to ruin Christmas for all the others who need Christmas done in a different way if they're going to connect to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's,
I feel like going like,
you know, yeah, exactly. And, even in that story with my father, again, if he had just gotten into a power struggle with that congregant or suddenly started like second guessing everything about how he and a team of people, he never designed services by himself, right? Like
right.
he works with others.
So, how about picking up on something related to like as a kind of a rejoinder or like from what I was
Yeah,
saying before about
that's what I was trying to do, and I totally lost the thread.
right about the way in which when interfaith families actually see joy in interfaithing, which can also need to come from spiritual leaders to say like this could be a good thing, that it's really an expression of wanting to see or to fill life with joy and love. And like
Yeah.
in many ways, like that's the better part of Sass is like to say like, no, I'm not being obstinate for obstinate's sake. I'm being obstinate because like you got to see how awesome this thing is.
Yeah, and I'm also not like purposely trying to cause offense in a way that is directly personal and just trying to cut someone down because I can. It actually comes from a place of can we like open ourselves up a little bit and see
Mm,
this from other sides? Like,
yeah.
can someone else speak into the issue? Because I think sometimes that's how I see and feel like the value of being a little bit sassy is especially when it's an individual, but also when it is a collective who aren't giving space for other people to have even a slightly different viewpoint. It's if you're not going to do or say the thing in exactly the same manner and words that I/we are using right now, then it is not acceptable.
Mm,
And a sassy retort to that could even just be like, well, a synonym for this is that. So are you really saying that we can't use that word?
right.
You know what I
It's
mean? Just to like throw people for a little bit of a like,
right. Well, it makes me think a little bit about Easter Passover, which I had mentioned that Purim is coming up. And then once Purim happens, then Passover is on its way,
right. And Ash
which means,
Wednesday will also be in February this year.
wow.
So Ash Wednesday and Mardi Gras.
Right. So it's getting close to that time of year.
When it is,
And we highly encourage you all to take a look at our recording from last year's amazing Passover Easter live stream, which was just a lot of fun for Ivana and I. If you watch it, you'll see that I've been resurrected for that. Just take a look at the very
just
end of it. It was
there's
amazing.
a teaser. Yeah.
There's a teaser. But through this conversation, I'm starting to think a little bit more about, and I will say also it dovetails somewhat from how we talked about the story of Passover and Easter last year during the live stream event, is the sassiness of Jesus's statement about how he is now the Passover. So let me to kind of like put that into perspective, at least from my own point of view. One of the things that I was taught as a young Jew, right? As a young Jew, we don't believe in Jesus. Okay. And that whereas Christmas was like, okay, the birth, nice, fine, can kind of handle that. It was Easter where there was a stronger issue. And one of the ways in which it was taught in Judaism and in Jewish communities, and I think that this is a legitimate understanding that Jewish communities would have, is that Easter was a sign that Jesus was replacing Judaism, right? I am now the Passover. I am now the, blood, body, all of that. After our live stream event and throughout all this work, I think that something for me related to that story is changing. And it isn't about Jesus' divinity per se, but it is related to let's let the text be right for a moment, in the sense of not arguing with what the text actually says. He viewed himself as, or that he knew that something was coming, right? He knew that something was coming. And to say that he was the Passover right then, it's basically saying, hey, what I'm going through right now is what our people went through. Don't you forget that. Don't you forget that this moment is in many ways what that moment was all about. And that we keep on trying to recreate this experience that happened in history, but live now and see that this is really happening today.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that without undermining my own theological beliefs. And I do believe that as a Jew, I need to have certain kind of ideological or theological beliefs, at least because of my own upbringing. It would be different for somebody who grew up in an interfaith household, and I understand that. But that what this moment could also be about, like the Easter Passover, is a way of saying that, like, if you want tradition to be meaningful, you got to see how it evolves over the course of time, and being able to read this older situation, this old moment, into the here and now and make that meaningful and make that work.
Exactly.
And so I think that the Sass is really about saying, like, you think this happened in the past, it's happening right now. And by the way, the rabbis also had that when they created the Seder, which we talked about this then. The Seder was not what Jesus experienced. His act was the eating of the Passover was not what we call a Seder. The Seder was in many ways, I'm going to say something really sassy right now. It's basically the rabbis taking Jesus's lead and saying, we got to make the Passover come alive right now, baby. I'm not saying necessarily they took his lead exactly, but you get the point I'm saying. They were saying how, like, we need to see ourselves that as if we left Egypt. We need to put ourselves into that space of being slaves. It's not just about reading it or seeing it from back then. It's about us right now. So perhaps then the Sass of interfaithing, the Sass of religion in many ways is saying, like, like this thing that you think is supposed to go in a certain way, this tradition has to be passed down. Only reason it got passed down, man, is because it changed. Exactly. Because tradition and change go together.
Yes. Yeah, they do. They do. I mean, we're talking about texts that are a minimum of 2,100 years old. A minimum of 2,100 years old.
I feel like going like Austin Powers. Minimum.
Yes, it is that. Exactly. So it's just, that's the bare minimum amount of time that has passed. And we are not the same. History has happened. And I think that's a big part of what we've been, saying with this episode is, that kind of sassy retort of, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like rigidity around so many of the tenets, beliefs, practices that you and I could talk about ad nauseum. The rigidity is ridiculous because they, in either example, Christianity or Judaism, they have not been perfectly replicated exactly as they were that minimum of 2,100 years ago. Like, they aren't.
No,
and I just sit there and I look also from, from Christian theology and the Advent,
where the rabbi was administering it.
No, I was using that not in a theological way, but like kind of in the literal, like the thing that started, especially in more like of a modern contemporary context where you've got like Christian theologies of decolonization, queer theology, liberation theology, womanist theologies, like all of these other, I believe, like very important, in some ways, counter theologies to what had been the dominant, and especially how that, impacted what Christianity looks like in the United States, there is so much beauty
Mm,
to me in all of that multiplicity of difference of perspectives and also a whole lot of sass, like looking back on oftentimes a very like empire obsessed version of a domineering Christianity that wants to rule over the world and saying, y'all done thrown out the baby with the bathwater. Like you have missed the mark so hard with what
mm,
that gospel message says Jesus came to do and to be for the world.
yeah,
So that's that.
I hear that, and I think every generation needs to figure out like what its theologies are, and it changes, it adapts. You mentioned the idea of rigidity. I think that some rigidity is important for the purpose of having a foundation, like a foundation stone that is always going to be there. But what is that foundation stone as opposed to everything else around it to protect it? That's
Yeah.
why I like the idea of a fence around the Torah, siag la Torah, as actually an opening into
Yeah.
discovering that foundation stone and saying the
Yeah. Yeah.
foundation stone is still
Yeah.
valid and we still need to kind of come back to it.
Mhm.
The term that I've heard before in certain Jewish circles is flexigidity.
Flexigidity. See,
Flexigidity.
I like
Yeah.
flexigidity because I was about to say solidity and rigidity are
Yeah.
not necessarily the same thing, right?
No, no, but
Even
it's
sorry, go ahead.
but it's like that combination of rigid in ways of saying like this is our core and we're always going to read our core. Like every year after the end of reading the Torah, the exact next thing we do is start reading it again. And even though there are mistakes in how interpretation occurs and there are certain things in Torah that are reprehensible to our moral values, one of my favorite teachings, I've said this before, from Reish Lakish, who is a great Talmudic scholar, is that even um, there are verses of Torah that are worthy of being burnt.
Mhm.
They're worthy of being burnt, but they're still essential elements of Torah, right?
Right.
The rigidity piece to it is to say, this is a part of our culture. We're not going to just like toss it away, being like, that was a yesteryear thing, but that it is like that the length of time that these texts or that this tradition has been going on is important. And in order to be able to keep it important, to keep that core going, that
Mhm.
rigid core going, we need to be flexible as to how to give access to it. And that's what changes over time. And I think that when I'm hearing about the different versions of theologies, it's like everybody wants their way into to be able to express a deep connection to God, Jesus, Allah, whatever it might be, whoever it might be, or the spirit, all those sort of different terms, names that are of God that are out there, and knowing that we're doing it just like our ancestors did,
Mhm.
but we're going to come to different conclusions, and that's okay. Not just it's not okay, that's okay. It's like damn right, and
Mhm.
we're not sorry about that.
No, 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 because I think for both, an exploration of Christianity and Judaism at some point, like part of the core that we're talking about, like, is how do you contend with the world, which is broken and messy,
Yeah.
and also actively existing, on the spectrum of time. Nothing about our religious foundations, as solid as they are, right? Like they exist within a context of this dynamic creation
Mm,
that is actively moving through time.
yeah. And we should not apologize for that. No one should apologize for wanting to re-understand, reinterpret, and make it relevant.
Mhm.
How we do that is the secret sauce. And we've talked about that in plenty of ways.
Plenty.
But I'm also just thinking about, my son is going to have his bar mitzvah this upcoming year. And I will definitely say that a piece of it is I want him to get some more like traditional learning in, especially with me. I want to be able to pass that along because I want him to have the skills that I was blessed with to feel confident enough to go back to the text to say that if this text seems empty to me, Kim, it can still figure out how it's relevant to me because it is part of my very life. Like this tradition is so important to me that I'm going to know how to be able to read it in a way that will give me the confidence that I can be able to interpret it in the ways that I feel are necessary for today.
Yeah.
You know, who knows what that's going to look like in the next generation. And I know that his life and my daughter's life and children's lives in general are not the same as their parents. Mine definitely isn't, even though my dad's a conservative rabbi and I'm a conservative rabbi too, but different kinds of paths. So we're never going to be those fully like replications, and I don't want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really want our kids? Do we really want the next generation to be exactly that way? Like the person who came to your father and said, "You ruined Christmas for me." Is it that you ruined the Christmas that I remember growing up, that I wanted to go to, that was my past? And if you don't give it to me, then it's as if I don't have Christmas? I'm sorry. That Christmas was the last year. That's not this Christmas.
Not this Christmas.
That's not this Rosh
And, like,
Hashanah. That's not this Shabbat. That's like, you need to be in the moment and see what the moment.
yeah, exactly. To stay open. To stay open. And even within that story, it's like you as one person among this congregation of, however many, like 100 or so folks, we didn't all sign an agreement saying that you get to determine like what the Christmas or any other service looks like. It's about more than just you.
Yeah.
And getting stuck on, and this is, part of how, my dad in his pastoral way, like had to process it as a means of holding space for this person who was quite ugly to him, was to say how, like, how sorry he was that that individual had such a closed off, rigid
Yeah.
sense of what he thought the service should include that he missed. He
Mm,
missed out on what could have been a lot of other beauty and joy, and
yeah.
especially because in this story we're talking about an Advent or Christmas service, peace and joy and hope and love.
Yeah.
He missed out on that.
Yeah. Because you still focus on the other thing, on how it's different as opposed to what is like what's not here as opposed to focusing on what is here.
Right,
And so I
right.
think that, one of the main messages to give all interfaithing families is first off, your life is full of sass, whether you think of it in that way or not, just by living it. And the second thing is that as a part of it, to not apologize for wanting to make it work again
Mm-hmm.
in whichever way you find to be the right way for you.
Mm-hmm.
That as long as you're able to honor and be open about bringing in your traditions in a way that feels equitable and feels fair and feels that you're there as a partnership and that as a family, as long as you're doing that, it doesn't matter the percentages, how, all the sort of different things. We can talk about that. We want to talk about that with you as a part of our Patreon community. So please join this movement and come to patreon.com/interfaithing so that together we can work together on figuring out like what that looks like for each of you. Like what does a flexigidity or whatever the phrase might be version of faith and culture and family look like for you? There is so amazing to see the ways in which people figure it out. And we're just so humbled to be a part of that journey and that you're listening to us and to please encourage your friends, family, whoever it might be that you think would be interested in getting that kind of support, that we're there for you.
Indeed, we are. We are. And in that spirit, we are going to be hosting some more of our Patreon meetups. We'll say soon.
As a good Jewish saying says, "B'sha'at tova," at the right time.
At the
It'll
right
happen at the
time.
right time.
Yes, because also being in community with you all, we want to make sure that the offerings are times that many of you can gather. So if we do if you're not already a member of the Patreon community and you'd like to be, please remember that there is a free membership option. And if you weren't able to join for the previous meetups that we did, back in December, then here's another
It's all
chance.
good. Yep,
If you're
another
new to
chance.
us, it's also a great way perhaps to like invite a friend.
Hmm. And if you want to actually make offerings, I'm putting up my offering plate right here.
Heyo.
We are also obviously so incredibly thankful to those who support this work as
Yes.
we're looking to continue to build it and to show to the wider world just how sassy this work can be. So if you want to really show it off like that, the more members that we get, that the more successful that this program is, the more that we can be able to help grow this work into really meaningful and astounding places. So with that, we want to wish you all a wonderful early February if you're listening soon to our publishing date or whenever it might be. Maybe you're enjoying the summer, and so this winter seems like a very far off time. But
Yes.
in my neck of the woods, it's real right now. So wherever you are, whenever you are, I hope that you take care
Stay curious
and
and
keep
keep
interfaithing.
interfaithing.